Welcome to the ISO Show, dispelling myths and sharing tips for success to improve your business with ISO standards, with your host, Mel Blackmore.
Hello and welcome to the ISO Show. Regular listeners might be confused now as I'm not the usual host. My name is Steph Churchman and I'm the Communications Manager here at Blackmores. I'm usually the one behind the scenes editing and publishing the podcast, but today I'm stepping in as we're talking all about our most recent game plan on the isologyhub, the ISO 27001 Transition Gameplan. This is an online DIY option to guide you through your ISO 27001 transition step by step, complete with workbooks, downloadable resources, and training videos. Now, I'm not the main brains behind this particular game plan. That would be one of our wonderful isologists, Sarah Ball. She's put a tremendous amount of work into the hub, and I work closely with her to produce and publish content. So, speaking from experience, this particular game plan took a lot of work and collaboration, so we really think it deserves a feature on the podcast. There is another reason though, and that is time is rapidly running out to make a start on your ISO 27001 transition. October 2025 might seem like a long way off, but we're already past the halfway point in the transition period, so if you haven't made a start, you really should at some point this year. Now, before I go into detail on the game plan itself, I just want to recap some key questions that we often get asked when talking about ISO 27001 2022. Starting with, who exactly needs to transition to ISO 27001 2022? That's basically anyone who is certified under ISO 27001 2013. They'll have to transition to the updated standard. If you just started or are planning to implement ISO 27001, you really should be implementing the latest version of the standard. As I mentioned earlier, the deadline is October 2025. One of the main reasons why we recommend getting a head start on this is certification bodies will undoubtedly have a large demand for transition audits in 2025, when everyone's rushing to get it done at the last minute. This results in a shortage of resources from the certification body's side, so you may end up struggling to get booked in time. So you may be thinking, what happens if you don't transition in time? The harsh truth is you will lose your ISO 27001 certification. And unfortunately, this means that you'll be required to go for another Stage 1 and Stage 2 assessment against the latest version of ISO 27001, as certification bodies will cease to certify against the 2013 version beyond 2025. That reason is probably going to be the main driver for a lot of you, but don't forget the latest version of ISO 27001 also considers a lot of new technologies that weren't around back when the last version was published. Because that was back in 2013, so that's over 10 years ago now. To put that in context for technology, that was when the iPhone 5 was released, and we're on version 15 now, so that's quite a leap. You can imagine that there's a lot more cybersecurity risks to consider with all the latest technology that's been released in that time. Put simply, it's for the benefit of your information security to ensure that you are adhering to the most recent best practice standards. Now that we've gone over the why, we'll cover the what. So what is the ISO 27001 Transition Gameplan exactly? Well, it's a game plan that will walk you through the stages of your transition, which align to our proven isology approach, isology being our methodology for implementing any ISO standard based on our 18 plus years of experience. In this game plan, we provide training videos on the changes to ISO 27001, along with specific training videos covering each of the new Annex A controls that you will need to be familiar with, along with templates and workbooks to take you through the process from beginning to end. I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough of each step of the game plan. Starting with Step 1, Plan. Before you begin your journey, it's advised to understand the main changes to the standard. We've summarised the high-level changes in a previous podcast episode, I believe that's episode 128, and we've included a quick summary in the first step of the game plan. In this step, you'll also find guidance on how to prepare for your certification body visit. You do really need to do this early on to help establish a realistic timeline to complete your transition work. Moving on to Step 2, Discover. At this stage, you need to get to grips with the changes to the standard. There have been a number of controls changed, and 11 completely new ones added. new controls such as ICT readiness for business continuity, threat intelligence, data masking, web filtering, and secure coding. We did go over all these briefly in a previous podcast. Go back and listen to episode 110 for the full list. In this Discover step, we provide a number of awareness videos to explore these new controls and changes in detail, including how they may apply to your business. We've also included a downloadable PDF guide to these changes in case you'd like to share this information internally at this stage. Next, we move on to step 3, Expose. Now it's time to start putting these things into action. In this step, we've included an ISO 27001-2022 transition workbook. This will act as a guide for all your transition activities. The first being the conducting of a gap analysis against the latest version of the standard. After completing this, you will have a much better idea of where your main gaps and vulnerabilities are, so you can start putting the necessary controls in place to ensure compliance with ISO 27001-2022. We've also included a summary of the main management system documentation that you will need to update ahead of your transition visit. The next step is number 4, Create. This is the step where you'll be implementing those changes as a result of your gap analysis. This will also be guided by that workbook, and we have provided some additional templates and resources to help you with that. These include a Statement of Applicability template. Our version is in line with the 2022 version of the standard, so you can feel free to use this to help update your own or migrate fully to our template if you'd prefer. Next is the Annex A control mapping. This document compares and maps every control from the old to the new standard. This will highlight where old controls have been merged or new ones have been added. And lastly, we've got an ISO 27001 Management Review template. Again, this is in line with the 2022 version of the standard, and includes prompts for the topics you will need to review in relation to your transition work. Moving on to the next step, which is number 5, Launch. Now, it's not just about updating your documentation, you will obviously need to communicate these changes to the wider business. Once the updated information security management system has been uploaded to its home, whether that's an intranet, a Teams channel, or an alternate location, as long as everyone has access to it, it's important to have a solid plan to ensure it's communicated effectively. In this step, we go over a few options for your launch plan, including guidance for both a soft launch and an all-in launch. To help you decide which one would be the best fit for you, we've included a full summary of each method in addition to a pros and cons list for each. Also included in this step is guidance on setting launch goals, covering the when, who, and how of your launch. We've also provided phased approach guidance. We advise taking a phased approach to your launch, so our 3-stage launch is outlined and designed to work in tandem with the launch workbook provided. And finally, a summary of different types of launch. So if you're stuck for ideas on how to best communicate the changes, don't worry, we've provided a list of ideas for inspiration. We're almost there at step 6, which is Engage. The last stages are all about gathering evidence of compliance against new and updated clauses and controls. In this step, we provide insight into what's required from your internal audits and management review ahead of your transition visit. It will be up to you to carry out these internal audits, but the game plan itself provides some guidance to get you started. If you wanted to get some more tips on carrying out internal audits within your business, we also offer a full internal auditor course on the Hub that covers the core skills needed to complete those. If you become a member of the Hub, you'll get access to our whole library of resources, which includes a wealth of ISO-related tools, templates, and training videos, in addition to obviously the game plan and that internal auditor course. And then we reach the final step 7, Review. This last step will help you prepare for the transition visit with your certification body. We touch on what you should expect from your certification body ahead of the transition visit and include guidance on carrying out a final document and evidence check to make sure you're all good to go. And that's it in a nutshell. If you'd like to get access to the game plan in addition to a whole suite of information security resources, get in touch as we'd be happy to book a demo and take you on a tour of the Hub. Simply visit www.isologyhub.com to either sign up or book that demo. As always, we'd really appreciate if you subscribe and leave a review of the ISO show on your preferred media player. This really does help us to reach a wider audience, so we can continue to dispel myths and share more knowledge about anything ISO. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to catching up with you next time on the ISO Show.
Looking to use ISO standards to drive better business practice? Contact us at blackmoresuk.com to access further information and book your free 15-minute call.